And thanks everybody for coming. It's really nice to see you all. I was raised on stories, anecdotes from family and friends, newspaper stories, and colorful community ramblings. Rather than the facts, I've always paid special attention to how the story had been perceived and told by the person telling it. In my opinion, that is where the truth lies. My talk today will be delivered in stories. These tales have driven my artistic practice, and I'm really honored to have this opportunity to share them with you. And I should tell you, it's about 45, 50 minutes. I know when I'm at a talk, I often like, when's this going to end? So now you know. My mother, Jean Armstrong Brydon, and her brothers, George and Cyril, were born and raised on a fruit farm in Beamsville, Ontario. Their parents immigrated from County Tyrone, Northern Ireland in the 1920s, along with a throng of family members. They brought with them the folkloric traditions and gaiety that were a large part of their culture. There was always a poem, a song, or a bit of harmless gossip as they canned the peaches or prepared a picnic on the front lawn of the farm overlooking Lake Ontario. The warmth and wit of this cast of characters was ingrained in my mother, and she carried it with her throughout her life. Thus, the tradition of storytelling was rooted in me and intuitively became a part of my work. Many of the anecdotes that I've used in paintings actually came from my mother. It wasn't intentional. She was full of spark and wit, and she'd rattle something off, and I would think, holy, there's one I've never heard. And I'd discreetly write it down. Dr. Addy would come out in any weather to see people in their homes. He would tend to the sick, do the chores, and cook their dinner. Those were the days, right? This guy birthed my mother. My brother and I did the evening paper route in the next village. Sometimes the light would light our way home. Sometimes the moon would light our way home, sorry. I'm a practiced painter, but some stories just demand more space. I wanted them to be lived in, walked through, and touched. That's when I began creating installations, environments in which people can immerse themselves in the story. Yeah, the content for my first large-scale installation came to me by accident. In the early 1990s, I was tearing up some flooring in my old Ontario house, and I came across a Peterborough Examiner newspaper relaying a man's lost dream. His name was John Smith, and in 1934, he tried to paddle a canoe from Peterborough, Ontario, across the Atlantic to Peterborough, England. I was captivated by this story, surprised I'd never heard of John Smith and his canoe, the Pride of Peterborough, or his great adventure. I asked around town, and no one remembered the event except for a few old-timers. From library microfilm, I was able to access all the news coverage that appeared in many papers throughout the summer of 1934. Smith's log was somehow found floating in a tin can in the Atlantic Ocean, so I unraveled the story with the help of the newspapers and the log. I love this little entry in his log because he stopped to give his equipment and gear an overhaul and was welcomed in by this random person with whom he had a very pleasant time picking strawberries and making jam. It's a truly Canadian adventure. I marveled at Smith's knowledge and skill and his unquestioned faith in his ability. And I was saddened by his death somewhere off the coast of Newfoundland as a result of being under time constraints due to the changing season. His friend, whom he'd written to back home, wouldn't send him new paddles because John had upset his mother by attempting this journey. So John had tried to cross the Gulf of the St. Lawrence with only one broken paddle. He was so competent, like from everything I read, he was amazing. I designed a life-size 1930s lunch counter. It was built by Jim Gleason, which included paintings as well as coffee and newspapers that I recreated with the help of the Peterborough Examiner, each page being a different day of reporting on Smith's journey. The visitor would sit at the counter, drink coffee, read the paper as if it was 1934. And I brought these so if somebody after this wants to look at them. Each page is, whoops, okay. So, see, it's a different day. It's not like one newspaper, but the whole story is in there, except for the part that's on the floor. And we can look at those later if you like. Near the end of my work, I was finally able to track down one of Smith's family members, John's sister-in-law, Hilda Smith. From her, I was given a different story of a different version of how the story ended. Hilda strongly believed that John never died on that trip. She said that he was the only decent one of those Smiths, including her husband, John's brother. Hilda said that they were all alcoholics and John staged his death to escape his family. She claimed that he was sighted working on whaling boats after that summer. This was a new version of the story, a completely different ending from the one I had been working with. I was unsettled by this for some time. I really wanted to know what had happened to this man who had been in my head day and night for the last year. Of course, the young artist in me wanted to investigate further, to get to the bottom of it. Sometimes there are a few different perspectives and interpretations of an anecdotal story. If you ask 10 tellers to tell you the same story, you will surely be told 10 different stories, right? Does the ending have to be wrapped up neat and tidy to make it a good story? This was an important lesson that I have since carried with me throughout my work. It was here that I realized a story could be powerful without a clean ending. In fact, the unresolved parts, the contradictions, the unknowns are often the most interesting and beautiful because of the different perspectives and styles of telling. For me, the truth lies in the hearts of the teller. This is here. This is the Art Gallery of Peterborough, just so you know. This one I showed here first. My second large-scale installation, Lost Histories, The Gypsies of 1909, was based on a group of Roma who traveled across Canada and visited Peterborough in the summer of that year. I referenced photographs taken during the visit by photographer Fred Roy. I read many books, and I talked to old-timers about their memories of traveling gypsies. And again, I spent many weeks unraveling the story through newspaper microfilm, so I've got that one as well here if anybody wants to see it later. Through my research, I came to the realization that this story was not mine to tell. I was able to contact Ronald Lee, a Romany scholar of Romany heritage, who guided me closely through every stage of the work, ensuring accuracy and cultural respect. Working with Ron was a rare privilege and a humbling education. He wrote a piece for the exhibition catalog and gave an informative talk at every showing. And I was just thinking where Rob and Sue are, but do you remember that trip? When we first met him, Rob and Sue and I, we all got in the car and drove to Hamilton and went out for dinner lunch at Helen's restaurant. Yes. And basically none of us said a word. We didn't have to because he talked and talked. He was great. He was just great. The story was complicated as the papers all contradicted each other, and the Roma were no help. They loved to be tricksters. There were many different versions of what actually took place in the summer of 1909. I eventually strung a scenario together. And this was the installation portion of this exhibition. And I blew up this photo. It's a life-size window. I blew up the photos so that somebody could sit and read the paper and see the gypsies coming into town on that day. Does anybody recognize the window? Yeah. It's in the exhibition downstairs.
Oh, no.
Yeah. We used a different window. We used the same window. It was great. It was perfect. The community of Roma had come over from Europe at a time of mass immigration. They worked their way through the Americas, arriving in Peterborough in June of 1909. They were arrested, 60 people and 15 wagons taken into custody. The men were put in jail, in the courthouse jail, and the women were allowed to camp with their children, causing quite a commotion among the people of Peterborough. Their chief, Michael George, was said to be absent, and his wife, Queen Rosie, was in charge of the group. Yeah, that's at the courthouse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the previous one as well, yeah. After 9 days, they were charged with obstructing the highway and asked to leave the city immediately. They asked and were granted permission to remain for a few days longer to have a wedding. They had a huge celebration with drinking, feasting, and dancing. The newspaper coverage of this event was conflicting. It seemed every Romany person the reporters talked to gave them a different story. Of course they did. This was this little girl that said that she was getting married. And then he kept talking to her, and then she said someone else was getting married. And then she said someone else was getting. Ronald Lee knew about this group of Roma. He had worked in Montreal with Queen Rosie's son, and he had in fact met Rosie when she was very old. I asked him if he knew what happened that day. Why was there a wedding? He told me that he didn't know for fact what had happened in Peterborough. Several times throughout our work together, he told me that he now wished he'd paid more attention. But he knew of that event, and he could make some informed guesses. Ron thought that the wedding in Peterborough was probably staged. Roma often staged weddings to make money from the locals. They would dress up a good-looking girl and boy, charge admission, tell fortunes, kind of like a circus. Another group of Roma had shown up in the city at the same time, which made everything even more confusing. So Ron said that the wedding might also have been for the purpose of horse trading. Roma from the west of Canada would meet Roma in the east to trade saddle horses for work horses. I asked Ron why the leader of why the leader of the group was absent. This was Queen Rosie. Where could he have been? Why was he absent? Where could he have been? And Ron said that he could have been anywhere, but most likely he was right there. Roma usually claimed their leaders were away when there was trouble with authorities. They would put a woman in charge, knowing that the Victorian respect for women would ensure that she would not suffer any violence or be put in jail. Rosie's queen status was invented for entertainment, giving a romantic allure that captivated the imaginations of the citizens of Peterborough, as well as the photographer Fred Roy. He took these. These were Roy studio pictures. I was drawn to this project partly because of the way that the Roma fabricated stories, almost as an art form, for fun as well as to deflect and distract attention. So what really happened here is hard to say. The Romany people have a long-standing tradition of passing stories orally rather than depending on the written word. The truth of the story that happened in Peterborough was recorded only in the memories of the Romany community. Here's another example of a powerful story that was never resolved. Ron was pleased with my work on this. He said that due to the Romany tradition of carrying stories in their hearts and memories, Lost History, the Gypsies of 1909 is a rare and significant documentation of the existence of Roma in Canada at the turn of the century. They're still being treated as newcomers. There we are at the downstairs. I asked Ron what became of the group. He said that many of them joined circuses and continued to travel. Most eventually settled in Hamilton, Montreal, or Toronto, and many of the descendants of the 1909 group work as fortune tellers or psychic advisors in the heart of the city today. I actually met some of the descendants from this group. Ron used to take me to all their International Romany Day is on April 8th, so I'd go to those celebrations, and I went to his birthday party. He was great. This brings me to my current large-scale installation, Elizabeth Thompson Advises. My mother, Jean Armstrong Brydon, earned a degree in journalism from the University of Western Ontario, and after working at the London Free Press Women's Department, followed by a year in Regina, she moved to Toronto and became a reporter for the Globe and Mail. From 1966 to 1978, Jean wrote the advice column at the Globe and worked under the pen name Elizabeth Thompson. The column titled Elizabeth Thompson Advises. A progressive, witty writer, Jean was ahead of her time with her responses and advice. She tackled important social issues such as the gay rights movement of the 60s and 70s, the women's rights movement, changing gender roles, abortion, interracial marriage, and the discrimination of minorities. Through a modern-day lens, some of her phrasing didn't align with contemporary ideology, but she was a pioneer for women in journalism because her willingness to address socially progressive topics in an advice column was groundbreaking. Of course, she also answered letters about straying husbands, annoying neighbors, messy moms, and the act of going braless. Her contributors came from all ages and walks of life. She often challenged them, encouraging them to look inward rather than pointing fingers. This approach set a fire under other letter writers, initiating lively debate, ultimately exploring all sides and complexities of the issue. My mother's Irish family produced kind and gentle women for the most part. Women who would never cause a fuss, worried what the people would think. But the odd one, although kind, was also obstinate and loved an argument, and my mother was one of these. She loved to poke the hornet's nest, and then she'd argue until it made no sense. And I'm guessing she was a part of this little blackout that happened yesterday. It's exactly what she would have done to me. So it's kind of nice, you know. Kind of nice that she's here. When Mum was moving in her later years from her large house to a smaller condo, she gave me the bulging boxes of letters, news clippings, and copy that she saved for all those years. I offered to organize them, and she said, yes, do something with them, maybe a book. I'm not sure this exhibition is quite what she had in mind. I took the boxes home, and there they sat for a few years. It wasn't till after her death in 2019 that I pulled them out and pored over them for many hours, days, and weeks, and then months. In them, I saw a treasure trove of stories documenting the issues and concerns of a time in history. From time to time, my mother would fabricate letters to introduce topics and initiate conversation. This was an important part of the craft for an advice columnist. Those letters were often based on chats with a friend or problems arising within our family. I had always known about this, but now reading the letters through the eyes of a more interested adult daughter, I felt as though I was reading them for the very first time. This is my most personal work to date. It dives into vulnerable aspects of my past that were difficult to confront and interpret. I had to take many breaks and to process the history I was uncovering. To my astonishment, I found letter after letter about my own experiences under the false name Jenny. Familiar family tales that had been buried for decades, and now, after so many years, her voice emerged with fury in the pages of her columns. Mum was objective and ahead of her time when it came to providing advice for readers, but the tone of the letters that were about Jenny shifted from my early childhood to my teenage years, documenting the details of a gradual troubling between us. Details that I questioned for decades, wondering if I remembered them correctly. And so we were unwittingly cast on the pages of a national newspaper. Some of the Jenny letters I used in this exhibition and some I did not. I invite you, when you're viewing the show, to maybe discover them, maybe not. And I'll give you a hint, she never played the guitar. Right now, I'm going to read you a couple of letters that my mother wrote about Jenny and that were not included in the exhibition for whatever reason. I will comment at the end. Globe and Mail, 1972. Dear Mrs. Thompson, we have a cat, a mangy, scrawny, smarmy cat who came with the farm we moved to last summer. Ever since we have known it, his nose has been running and it sits around on window ledges looking in and mewing and sneezing. We also have a daughter, 13, tempestuous, passionate about animals, and considers herself Joan of Arc where this old cat is concerned. I want to take the cat to the Humane Society and have it put to sleep before we all catch some disease. My husband has suggested that one of the older boys shoot the cat. The boys suggest that their father drown the cat, but our daughter flies into a rage at all of us for being so cruel. Mrs. Thompson, there are patches of fur gone, the meow is hoarse, and the poor thing can barely drag its weary bones around. I've called the vet, who says it sounds like a form of distemper, and I hesitate to take it in, frankly, because we can't spend money on a cat. My daughter says she has never heard anything so callous in her life. If we spend money on doctor bills for the family, how could we think of not doing the same for a cat? The cat has the same right to live as people do. All creatures have, she storms. Enough of what she feels is right and good that none of us can bring ourselves to do a thing. We're immobilized. What should we do? Fed up with cat. And Mom, take the cat to be put to death when your daughter is at school. To avoid a scene. To avoid a scene. Then explain to her that it is against the law to let animals suffer. If your cat has been ill for that many months, she is not likely to get better and will crawl away to die and suffer by herself. Your girl's heart is in the right place, but you should not let a child override your own judgment. Tell her that life on a farm is like that. Occasionally a horse or cow must be put to death to protect the other animals from the spread of infection. Sympathize with her for caring about the poor sick creature. But don't be swayed by her misguided compassion. Remember, girls that age thrive on causes. My cat Mindy drifted into the fated recall of a trail of animals that came and went. I don't remember her going, I just remember her gone. I assumed for years that she had crept off by herself to die as cats do, their final walk. No one explained to me about suffering animals and how a farm has livestock, and when there's livestock, there's dead stock. Well, to be fair, they did talk to me about this in relation to my pony and several other animals who died, but they never said another word about my cat Mindy. Many years later, on my 40th birthday, my family took me out for dinner. A lovely restaurant. We sat at a long table, all three brothers, their partners, my parents, and my daughters. During the meal, we got into a tale swap about our memories of those first few years on the farm. Remember that year it never stopped raining? On the one sunny day, we tried to bring in the hay. The wagon got stuck in the mud. We tried to pull it out with the tractor, and the tractor got stuck, and tried to pull it out with the truck, and the truck got stuck. Every damn vehicle we had was stuck in the mud. That was a wet year. Remember that pony that Joe got from Van Zanwick's down the road? Lady was her name. She figured out how to open the gate and run down the lane and up the road. She would take all the horses with her. All 4 of them galloping up the Lakeview Road back to the Van Zanwick farm. Lady learned how to open any gate latch we installed. Remember that old sick cat? What was her name, Joe? Mindy. Adrian was told to take her to the backfield and shoot her. He picked up the cat and the gun, got on the tractor to drive to the back of the farm, accidentally dropped the cat, and ran over it with the tractor. This was the first I'd heard of this. Adrian's here, by the way. He says he didn't do it, but I think he did it on purpose because I can't imagine Adrian could shoot anything. Globe and Mail, 1975. Dear Mrs. Thompson, we have found out from neighbors, good concerned souls, that our 15-year-old daughter has been hitchhiking, and we are worried that she might get in with some drunk and get into an accident. We have forbidden any of the children to hitchhike. Not true. She made us hitchhike when there was a snow day. I told her I was afraid to hitchhike, and she said, "Don't worry, you're with your brothers." We don't even want them to take rides with people they know, as some of the young men in our area drive like maniacs. As we live on a farm, it's lonely sometimes for our daughter, surrounded as she is by brothers. Now and then she wants to visit a girl who lives up the road or go to the store a mile away. We always thought she walked or rode her horse, as she often did. Now we have learned that she frequently walks to the top of the hill out of view of our house and then hitchhikes. Our daughter is clever at dodging direct questions when we have not got her to admit what she has been doing. Consequently, we have banned her from leaving the property, unescorted for the rest of the summer. She's been storming and screaming these past 2 weeks, saying we were mean, unreasonable parents who don't know what it's like being stuck in a dump like this with a bunch of dumb brothers. She says she's a prisoner, and we have made jail a home. Home a jail, sorry. Jail a home. We also learned by accident that our daughter was not visiting the girlfriend always. When she said she was. She was going to a restaurant up the highway to hang around with a bunch of young punks. I'm worried about hitchhiking, naturally, but I'm getting worried too about our daughter's general pattern of behavior, the deviousness, the anger and sulkiness. Do you think we're being too strict with her? She just never seems happy. Jenny's mom. You are right to be worried about the hitchhiking and right to take any measures necessary to prevent it. The number of teenage girls who have been murdered after hitchhiking in this country is growing alarmingly. I don't think that was true at that time either. It sounds to me as though your daughter is bored stiff, yes, which would explain the behavior and anger. There are plenty of summer courses available in most areas, as well as camps for girls. If your girl does not have a job, she really needs to be filling her time with some outlet she would enjoy. Well, I guess you could call the kids in the neighboring farms young punks. But they really weren't bad kids. Their priorities were simple: dodging the rain to get the hay in, rushing to get the back seats on the school bus. The farther back you sat, the cooler you were. fixing tractors, trucks, cars, and of course, who had the best snowmobile. We would be riding the bus up and down hilly gravel roads, listening to chanting coming from the back of the bus. Skidoo, Snow Jet, John Deere, Arctic Cat, with no clear explanation as to why one was better than the other. I came from a family who viewed these machines as loud, smelly, and in need of a muffler. But it was not long before I discovered the thrill of riding behind a young punk on the back of a snow jet with a convoy of machines around and around the field, the soft scent of a warm cattle barn and the moon glowing brighter than the headlights to light our way, only to turn on a dime and return to the house in a matter of minutes when his little sister flickered the porch light to tell him he was needed at home. One terrible snowstorm in 1971, my parents put their car in the ditch on the long hilly road a few miles from our farm. The wind was whipping sheets of snow across the fields, leaving it in drifts on the pavement. My stepfather told my mother that he would walk to the farm and call for help, and that she should stay in the car and bundle up in the blanket. He set out in the blinding snow, bending into a harsh wind that was whipping up the frozen lake. Before long, he heard the low rumble of an approaching motor, getting increasingly louder as it neared. A snowmobile driven by a young punk came roaring past him with my mother on the back. It disappeared over the hill and in the direction of the farm. He continued plodding through the foot-deep snow, and before long heard the motor getting gradually louder as the boy came back for him. As I discovered these letters one by one over the months that I was researching, I struggled with how to process this buried history. How could I work this into the exhibition? Should I? And how do I add my own voice to these stories? Every time I pushed it out of my mind and got back to my mother's work, I'd find another letter about our family and Jenny in particular. Sometimes I had to take long breaks. Elizabeth Thompson Advises is one large story encompassing a collection of smaller ones. It was my mother's story entrusted to me, and I'm grateful for that. I've tried to represent her viewpoints honestly and with respect in all of this work. It's a conversation between a mother and a daughter told in story, a language most comfortable to both of us. I'm immensely proud of her, and I miss her. Not every day like everyone on Facebook says, but I miss her a lot of days, and I miss her today. What would she think of Elizabeth Thompson Advises, my exhibition based on her work? I will never know. Happy Mother's Day, everyone.